The Galactic Council chamber floated in space, orbiting a dying star. Inside the massive crystal structure, representatives from 47 different alien species gathered. The air buzzed with strange sounds as different beings talked to each other. Some clicked their mandibles. Others hummed through their translator devices. A few glowed with soft light when they communicated. In the center of the chamber stood two humans. Taeho Kim wore simple clothes and stood with his arms crossed. Next to him, Jiwoo Park held a datapad and looked calm. Both knew this meeting would decide humanity's future among the stars. Hyun-sik, the lead arbiter, raised one of his many arms. The chamber fell silent. His insect-like body reflected the starlight as he spoke through his translator. We have reviewed humanity's application for membership in the galactic community. There are concerns. Jiwoo stepped forward. What concerns? We have shown our technology. We have shown our culture. We have shown our willingness to learn and cooperate. A different voice spoke up. Taewon, a scientist from the same species as Hyun-sik, moved to the front. That is exactly the problem. You rely too much on your technology. You are young. You have only been in space for a few hundred years. Most species here evolved with technology given to us by older civilizations, but we worry that you depend on your machines too much. Taeho spoke for the first time. His voice was steady. Every species uses technology. That's what makes civilization possible. Yes, Taewon agreed. But what happens when that technology fails? What happens when you have nothing? Most of us would die. We evolved past our primitive stages millions of years ago with help. We have forgotten how to survive without our tools. The chamber filled with murmurs. Many species nodded or made their equivalent gestures of agreement. Bora, a crystalline being who observed but rarely spoke, watched with interest. Taewon continued. I propose a test. A true test of adaptability. We find an uninhabited world with breathable air and water. We send humans there with nothing. No tools, no weapons, no devices of any kind. 30 days. If they survive, they prove their worth. If they fail, they prove they are not ready for membership. The chamber erupted. Some species thought this was too harsh. Others thought it was fair. A few thought it was too easy. Hyun-sik raised his arms again for silence. This is unusual, Hyun-sik said carefully, but not without precedent. We have tested species before, though never quite like this. The question is, will humanity accept? Jiwoo turned to Taeho. They didn't need to speak. Taeho had spent 20 years teaching survival skills. He had lived in the wilderness with nothing but his knowledge. He knew what humans were capable of. Jiwoo faced the council. We accept your challenge. But we want it broadcast. Every species in the galaxy should see this. If we are going to prove ourselves, everyone should watch. Taewon's mandibles clicked with what might have been satisfaction. Agreed. The whole galaxy will watch humanity fail or succeed. We will see what you really are. You will, Taeho said quietly. You will see exactly what we are. The council quickly established the rules. 30 standard days. One world chosen for its harsh but survivable conditions. 3 human volunteers would go. They could wear simple clothes but carry nothing else. No hidden tools. No secret devices. The council would monitor everything from orbit and broadcast it across the galaxy. Taeho volunteered immediately. Within hours, 2 more humans joined him. Yuna was a geologist who understood rocks and metals better than anyone. Jae-sung was a biologist who could identify plants and animals quickly. Together, they made a good team. The aliens found this confidence strange. Most species could not imagine life without their technology. They had evolved with help from older civilizations. They had never needed to learn how to make fire or build shelter from raw materials. Those skills had been lost millions of years ago. But humans were different. Humans had evolved on what the galaxy called a death world. Earth was a planet that tried to kill life in every possible way. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, massive predators, deadly diseases. And yet humans had not just survived. They had thrived. They had conquered their world so completely that they now did survival challenges for fun. The night before the trial began, Hyun-sik met with Jiwoo privately. The old arbiter looked troubled. I must warn you, Hyun-sik said. Many on the council want humanity to fail. They fear what your species represents. You are young but powerful. You are aggressive but curious. You have no ancient civilization guiding you. You figured everything out yourselves. This frightens them. Jiwoo nodded. I understand. They want to see us struggle. They want to see us weak. Yes, Hyunsik agreed, but that is not what worries me. What worries me is what happens if you succeed too well, if you make it look easy. That might frighten them even more. Jiwoo smiled. Then they will learn something important about humanity. We don't give up. We don't quit, and we don't hide what we are capable of. If they want to see what we can do, we will show them. The next morning, billions of beings across the galaxy tuned in to watch. News networks buzzed with predictions. Most experts agreed that the humans would last maybe a week. Some generous estimates gave them 2 weeks. Almost no one thought they would make it the full 30 days. Daeho, Yuna, and Jae-sung stood in the teleportation chamber. They wore simple pants and shirts. Nothing else. No shoes, no bags, no tools. They looked at each other and nodded. Ready? Daeho asked. Ready. Yuna and Jae-sung answered together. The teleportation beam activated. In an instant, they vanished from the council ship. The trial had begun. The galaxy watched, and humanity was about to teach everyone a lesson they would never forget. The 3 humans appeared on a rocky hillside. The teleportation effect faded, leaving them standing under an alien sky. 2 suns hung low on the horizon, casting strange shadows across the landscape. The air felt thin but breathable. A cold wind blew across the barren rocks. Daeho looked around quickly. His eyes scanned the terrain like a predator studying hunting grounds. Rocky outcrops. Sparse vegetation in the valleys below. No signs of large animals. Good. That meant they could focus on shelter and fire first. Yuna knelt down and picked up a handful of soil. She rubbed it between her fingers. Sedimentary rocks. This area had water once. There should be clay deposits nearby. And look at those layers. She pointed to a cliff face. Different types of stone. Some of them will be useful. Jae-sung walked to a patch of greenish plants growing between the rocks. He carefully touched a leaf, then smelled it. Basic carbon-based life. The biochemistry might be similar to Earth plants. I need to test which ones are safe to eat. High above them, invisible to the naked eye, orbital cameras recorded everything. The feed went out to billions of viewers across the galaxy. In the council chamber, species gathered to watch. Many placed bets on how long the humans would last. They look lost, one observer commented. Give them time, Taewon said. When night falls and they have no fire, no shelter, they will understand their mistake. But Daeho was already moving. He walked directly to a rocky outcrop and began examining the stones carefully. He picked up several, testing their weight and texture. Then he found what he was looking for. A dark gray stone with a smooth texture and sharp edges when it broke. Flint, he said quietly, or something very similar. He searched for a few more seconds and found a harder, rounder stone. A hammerstone. Perfect. He sat down on the ground, held the flint stone steady against his thigh, and raised the hammerstone. In the council chamber, beings leaned forward. What was the human doing? Daeho struck the flint with the hammerstone. The angle was precise. The force was exact. A sharp flake of stone broke free. He examined it, turned it over, and nodded. The edge was sharper than any metal blade. Sharp enough to cut skin if you weren't careful. Sharp enough to cut wood, leather, or meat. The entire process took 90 seconds. Daeho held up the stone blade to the nearest camera. We call this napping, he said calmly. Humans have been doing this for 3.3 million years. This is technology. Just because it's made from rocks doesn't mean it's not sophisticated. The council chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouted in their various languages. Translators struggled to keep up. It made a cutting tool from rocks, one being exclaimed. Without any devices, another added. How did it know which stones to use? A third asked. Taewon's mandibles clicked nervously. It's just one tool. That proves nothing. They still need fire. They still need shelter. They still need food and water. One stone knife won't save them. But Taewon was wrong. That one stone knife changed everything. With a sharp edge, the humans could now do countless things. Daeho moved quickly. He found young trees growing in a nearby valley. Using the stone blade, he cut through the small trunks easily. He gathered straight branches for a shelter frame. Yuna helped him strip bark from the trees. The bark was fibrous and strong. She showed Jae-sung how to twist it into cordage. See? You separate the fibers, wet them a little, then twist them together. The friction holds them. Now we have rope. Jae-sung learned quickly. Soon they had several lengths of plant fiber rope. They used it to lash together a basic shelter frame. More bark became roofing material. Within 2 hours, they had a small but sturdy structure that would keep out wind and rain, but they still needed fire. Fire meant warmth. Fire meant protection from animals. Fire meant they could cook food and purify water. Fire was essential. Daiho found dry wood and began making a bow drill. He used the stone knife to carve a straight stick into a spindle. He found a flat piece of wood for the base. He made a small bow from a curved branch and more bark cordage. Finally, he gathered dry grass and wood shavings for tinder. The aliens watched in fascination as Daiho wrapped the bowstring around the spindle. He placed the spindle point into a notch he had carved in the base wood. Then he began moving the bow back and forth rapidly. The spindle spun. Friction built up. Smoke began to rise. Impossible, someone in the council chamber whispered. Fire from wood and string? Daiho kept moving the bow steadily. More smoke rose. A tiny coal formed in the notch. He carefully transferred it to his bundle of tinder and blew gently. The tinder began to glow. Then it burst into flame. 4 hours after landing on the planet, the humans had fire. They fed the fire carefully, building it up with larger sticks. Jae-sung brought back several plants he had tested. These 3 types should be safe to eat. This one here has tubers underground like potatoes, and I found a stream about 1 kilometer east. Fresh water. Yuna had been exploring too. I found clay deposits and what looks like iron ore. If we had more time, I could make metal tools, but for now, stone will work fine. That night, the 3 humans sat around their fire eating roasted tubers and drinking clean water. They were not struggling. They were not desperate. They were comfortable. On the council ship, Ji-woo watched the broadcast with a small smile. She knew her people would succeed. But seeing it happen still filled her with pride. She turned to address the gathered aliens. My colleagues aren't doing anything special. This is standard knowledge for any human interested in our history. We teach these skills to children. Every human knows that our ancestors survived ice ages and predators with less than what you see here. We remember how to live because forgetting would dishonor those who came before us. Hyunsik watched silently. His species had been given technology by an older civilization millions of years ago. They had never needed to learn these skills. They had never needed to make fire from sticks or knives from rocks. They had forgotten what it meant to truly survive. And watching these humans thrive with nothing made him realize something profound. Humanity hadn't just survived on their death world. They had mastered it so completely that these skills were now easy for them. They weren't struggling on this planet. They were at home. The first day ended. Most species expected the humans to be huddled together, cold and afraid. Instead, they slept warm and well-fed in their shelter. The fire burned steadily through the night, and the galaxy began to understand that they had greatly underestimated humanity. 1 week passed, then 2. The humans did not just survive. They thrived. Their camp transformed from a simple shelter into a permanent settlement. Daiho had made dozens of tools. Sharp knives, scraping tools, axes with stone heads lashed to wooden handles, awls for punching holes in leather. Each tool had a specific purpose. Each tool made other tasks easier. Yuna discovered that she could fire clay into pottery. She dug clay from the riverbank, shaped it into bowls and containers, then baked them in the hot coals of the fire. Now they could store water. They could cook soups and stews. They could preserve food for later. Jae-sung mapped every edible plant within walking distance. He found 23 different types that were safe to eat. 8 more had medicinal properties. He created a small garden near the shelter, transplanting the most useful plants. He also made fish traps from woven branches and caught fresh fish from the stream. The shelter itself improved daily. They added a second layer of bark for better waterproofing. They dug a small trench around it for drainage. They built a stone fire pit inside for warmth during cold nights. They even made simple beds from dried grass and animal skins. Animal skins came from small creatures Daiho trapped. He made snares from plant fiber and caught rabbit-like animals. The meat provided protein. The skins became leather after careful treatment. The bones became needles and other small tools. Nothing went to waste. Across the galaxy, billions watched in amazement. What started as entertainment became education. The humans were teaching survival techniques that most species had forgotten millions of years ago. One evening, Daiho sat by the fire and spoke directly to the orbital cameras. Many of you watching think we are surviving without technology. But you're wrong. Everything you see is technology. This fire is technology, understanding how friction creates heat, how dry wood burns hotter than wet wood, how to arrange fuel for maximum efficiency. That's all technology. He held up a stone knife. This blade required knowledge of geology, physics, and materials science. I needed to understand rock formation, fracture patterns, and edge geometry. The knife itself is simple. The knowledge behind it is not. He gestured to the shelter. Architecture, engineering, understanding load-bearing structures, weather patterns, and insulation. This shelter would keep us alive in a storm that would kill most technological species if their power failed. Yuna added her thoughts. I've been working on something special. Watch this. She had built a small dome of stones and clay. Inside, she arranged specific rocks she had carefully selected. She covered them with charcoal and got the fire extremely hot. This is called a bloomery furnace, she explained. These rocks contain iron ore. If I get the temperature high enough and control the oxygen flow correctly, I can extract pure iron. From there, I can make metal tools. We're 3 weeks into this trial, and I'm already entering the Iron Age. The aliens watching couldn't believe it, moving from stone tools to metalworking in 3 weeks. It seemed impossible. But 2 days later, Yuna pulled out a crude bloom of iron from the furnace. She spent hours hammering it, removing impurities, shaping it. The result was a rough but functional iron blade. Given a year, she said, holding up the iron knife, I could produce steel. Given 2 years, basic machinery. It's just a matter of knowledge and time. In the council chamber, the mood shifted. What began as a test to prove human weakness was instead revealing human strength. These weren't primitive savages. These were highly intelligent beings who understood technology at its most fundamental level. A young alien named Sun-Hee watched with particular interest. She belonged to the Tarian species, mammalian beings who looked somewhat like tall, slender cats. She had been researching her own species' history and discovered something shocking. We used to know these things, Sun-Hee said quietly to her mentor. 50,000 years ago, before we joined the galactic community, our ancestors made tools from stone. They built shelters. They created fire. But we forgot. We accepted technology from older species and let our own knowledge die. She wasn't alone in this realization. Researchers from dozens of species began examining their own histories. They found the same pattern again and again. Their ancestors had been tool users. They had developed basic survival skills. But after joining the galactic community and receiving advanced technology, those skills vanished within a few generations. Only 3 species in the entire council still maintained any knowledge of primitive technology. And even they had lost most of the practical skills. Humans were unique. They remembered. They practiced. They taught their children these ancient skills even though they had advanced technology. Hyun-Sik found himself deeply troubled. He spoke privately with other senior council members. We need to discuss what we're seeing. These humans aren't just surviving. They're comfortable. They've built a life on that world with nothing but knowledge and determination. It's disturbing, another arbiter agreed. We call their world a death world. Extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, geological instability, deadly diseases. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years. And they didn't just survive. They mastered it. Now they do this as recreation. They call it camping. They do it for fun. Bora, the crystalline observer who usually remained silent, finally spoke. They are not struggling. They are not merely surviving. They are comfortable. What does that mean for a species classified as highly technological developers? It means they understand technology in a way we do not. We use technology. They are technology. Back on the planet, the humans continued their work. Jae-sung created a calendar system using the movement of the 2 suns and the stars at night. He tracked weather patterns and learned to predict when rain would come. Daeho made a bow and arrows for hunting larger animals. Yuna experimented with different types of clay to make better pottery. They were not counting down the days until they could leave. They were building a home. By day 12, educational institutions across the galaxy were downloading the footage for their students. Survival training programs that had focused on maintaining technological equipment began teaching primitive skills. 3 governments made announcements that they would require basic tool-making knowledge in their school systems. The humans had sparked a revolution. Not with weapons or threats, but simply by showing what intelligence truly meant. But not everyone was happy about this. Taewon watched the broadcast with growing frustration. The test was supposed to prove that humans were weak. Instead, it was making them look like the most capable species in the galaxy. He couldn't accept this. He wouldn't accept this. Late at night, Taewon met with others who shared his concerns. They agreed that something needed to be done. The humans were making survival look too easy. They needed a real challenge. Something that would push them to their limits. Something that would finally make them fail. And Taewon had an idea. A terrible, dangerous idea that violated council protocols. But he convinced himself it was necessary. The galaxy needed to see humans struggle. They needed to see humans fail. For the good of everyone, the test needed to become harder. Much harder. On day 13, Taewon brought his proposal to the council. He spoke with passion, his mandibles clicking rapidly. The humans are not being properly tested. The conditions are too easy. We should introduce a natural disaster, a storm. Something that any species might face on a survival world. Hyunsik objected immediately. That violates the agreed parameters. We said the trial would be fair. No interference. It's not interference, Taewon argued. It's a natural weather pattern. These things happen. We're simply ensuring the test is complete. Otherwise, what have we proven? That humans can camp in good weather? That's not survival. The council debated for hours. Many members sided with Taewon. They wanted to see how humans handled real danger. A few sided with Hyunsik, arguing this wasn't ethical. But Taewon's faction won the vote. A major storm would be introduced using weather control technology. The humans would not be warned. Hyunsik left the chamber angry and troubled. He couldn't prove Taewon's true motives, but he suspected this was about more than proper testing. This was sabotage. He sent a coded message to Jiwoo, warning her that something was coming. But he couldn't tell her exactly what. All he could do was trust the humans to handle whatever happened. On the planet, Daeho woke early on day 14. Something felt wrong. He stepped outside the shelter and looked at the sky. The clouds had changed. They were darker, thicker, moving faster. The wind had shifted direction and grown stronger. Birds that usually sang in the morning were silent. Small animals were hiding. He called to the others. Wake up, we have work to do. Big storm coming. Maybe 18 hours away. Yuna emerged from the shelter. She looked at the sky and nodded. Agreed. Those cloud formations are bad news. How big do you think? Category 3 or 4 if this was Earth, Daeho said. Maybe worse. We need to secure everything now. In the council chamber, aliens watched in confusion. How did the human know about the storm? They had only activated the weather control 12 hours ago. The storm wouldn't arrive for almost a full day. There were no instruments, no satellites, no sensors. How could he possibly predict it? But Daeho wasn't guessing. He was reading signs that humans had learned to recognize over hundreds of thousands of years. Cloud patterns, wind direction, animal behavior, air pressure changes that you could feel in your joints and sinuses, temperature shifts, the smell of coming rain. All of these things told a story to someone who knew how to listen. The 3 humans moved into emergency mode. They reinforced the shelter with additional supports. They used their strongest rope to tie everything down. They dug drainage channels around the shelter to prevent flooding. They moved all their supplies to higher ground and stored them in multiple locations. If one cache was destroyed, they would still have others. Jae-sung built windbreaks from piled stones. Yuna waterproofed the shelter's roof with extra layers of bark sealed with clay. Daeho prepared emergency supplies. Extra firewood stored inside where it would stay dry. Water containers filled and sealed. Food prepared and protected. They worked without stopping. Daeho spoke to the cameras while securing a support beam. Some of you are probably wondering how we knew this storm was coming. Humans didn't have weather satellites for 99.9% of our history. We learned to read the sky. We learned to watch animals. We learned to feel changes in the air. Our ancestors crossed oceans in wooden boats using these skills. A storm like this? We've handled worse. The storm hit that evening. The wind screamed across the landscape. Rain fell in sheets so thick you could barely see. Lightning struck the ground repeatedly. Thunder shook the earth. It was a Category 4 hurricane equivalent, strong enough to destroy most structures, strong enough to kill anyone caught outside. The humans stayed inside their reinforced shelter. It creaked and groaned but held firm. Water ran off the sloped roof and into the drainage channels. The wind pushed against the walls but couldn't knock them down. Inside, the 3 humans stayed dry and warm. They had a fire going in their protected fire pit. They had food. They had water. They were safe. The storm lasted 36 hours. During the worst of it, Yuna actually ventured outside during a brief calm period. She collected fresh clay that the storm had washed up from deeper soil layers. "Waste not, want not," she said with a grin, knowing the cameras were watching. Jae-sung used the time to tell stories. He talked about human history, about the Dust Bowl in America where farmers survived years of drought and dust storms, about the Ice Age when humans lived through conditions far worse than this, about monsoons in Asia where people had learned to thrive in months of heavy rain, about deserts where humans survived in heat that would kill most species. "Every environment on Earth tried to kill us," he explained. "Deserts, jungles, Arctic tundra, mountains, swamps. We didn't just survive in them. We lived in them. We raised families in them. We built civilizations in them. This storm is bad, but compared to an ice age that lasts thousands of years, this is nothing." When the storm finally passed, the humans emerged to assess the damage. One of their supply caches had flooded, but they had anticipated this and used waterproof clay vessels. Everything inside was still dry. The shelter had minor damage to one corner of the roof. They repaired it in 6 hours. Dae-ho looked directly at the nearest camera. He knew this storm wasn't natural. The timing was too perfect. The intensity was too specific. Someone on the council had done this to test them. He smiled coldly. "Was that supposed to break us? On Earth, we call that Tuesday. Try harder." The effect on the galactic audience was immediate. Some species viewed humans as dangerous. These beings could weather conditions that would devastate most civilizations. Others were inspired. If humans could do this, maybe their own species could relearn these skills. Scientific communities began researching their own forgotten survival knowledge. Sunhee's people, the Tarian, officially announced a new educational initiative. They would begin teaching primitive survival skills in their schools. 3 other species made similar announcements. The humans had started a movement without even trying. Bo-Ra, the crystalline observer, made a public statement that went viral across the galaxy. "We have witnessed something remarkable. These humans are not struggling. They are not merely surviving. They are comfortable. They predicted the storm without instruments. They prepared without panic. They endured without suffering." What does this tell us? It tells us that intelligence is not about having technology. It's about being technology. It's about understanding the universe so deeply that you can work with it using only knowledge and skill. But Taiwan was not satisfied. The storm had failed. The humans had passed the test too easily. He had been humiliated again. His reputation was suffering. Other council members who had supported him were now distancing themselves. He needed to do something more. Something that would finally prove he was right about humanity. Late at night, Taewon accessed the orbital monitoring system. He shouldn't have had this access, but he had connections. He found the humans' exact coordinates. He also found something else in the planetary survey, something the council had supposedly removed before the trial began. Large predators, 6 of them. Semi-intelligent pack hunters. They had been relocated to the other side of the planet for safety. But what if someone gave them the humans' scent? What if someone guided them to the human camp? That would be a real test. That would finally show everyone what happened when humans faced true danger. Taewon began making plans. This time he wouldn't ask for permission. This time he would act alone. And this time the humans would finally fail. They had to. For his pride. For his reputation. For his belief that humanity didn't belong among the stars. He didn't realize that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. He didn't understand that humans hadn't become the dominant species on Earth by running from predators. They became dominant by hunting the hunters, and he was about to give them the opportunity to prove it. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived on the planet. The trial was almost over. Just 7 more days and they would return to the council as victors. But Taewon had other plans. Using his unauthorized access to the monitoring system, he located the 6 predators on the far side of the planet. They were massive creatures, each weighing over 300 kilograms. They looked like a nightmarish combination of earth bears and tigers. Sharp claws, powerful jaws, pack hunters with enough intelligence to coordinate attacks. They had been removed from the trial area specifically because they were too dangerous. Taewon used a transport beam to move them closer, 10 kilometers from the human camp. Then he used scent markers from the humans' clothing to create a trail. The predators would smell prey. They would come. And finally, humanity would face a real threat. On day 26, Daeho noticed something wrong. He was checking his snares when he saw unusual tracks. Large, four-legged, predator, and they were fresh. He followed them for a few meters, reading the story they told. Multiple animals, moving together. Heading toward the camp, he returned to camp quickly. We have company. Big predators. Pack hunters. Coming this way. They'll be here tonight or tomorrow. Yuna looked concerned but not afraid. How many? At least 4. Maybe 6. Hard to tell from the tracks. Jae-sung nodded slowly. So we prepare. We've dealt with predators before. This is no different, Daeho smiled grimly. Exactly. Humans didn't become the apex predator on Earth by running away. We hunt the hunters. They spent the next several hours preparing. First, they built a defensive perimeter around the camp. Sharpened wooden stakes angled outward would slow down charging predators. Then they dug pit traps along the most likely approach routes. Each pit had sharpened spears at the bottom. Daeho made a high observation post using strong branches lashed together. From there, they could see approaching threats and coordinate their defense. They prepared multiple escape routes in case they needed to retreat. They set up smoke signal fires that could disorient animals with sensitive noses. Yuna's iron blade became the head of their best spear. She attached it to a long, straight shaft. The first metal-tipped weapon on this world, Daeho made atlatls, spear-throwing tools that would extend their range and power. They fire-hardened the tips of a dozen more spears. In the council chamber, Hyun-sik discovered what Taewon had done. He brought evidence to the other arbiters. The chamber erupted in chaos. Taewon was arrested immediately. Council members shouted about protocols and ethics. Some wanted to extract the humans immediately. Ji-woo stood up. No. If you pull them out now, you prove that humans need saving. You prove we cannot handle challenges. Leave them. Trust them. They know what they're doing. Hyun-sik looked at her with concern. These predators are extremely dangerous. Even with preparation, your people could die. Ji-woo smiled coldly. You clearly don't know what species you're dealing with. Watch, learn. The predators attacked at dusk. 6 of them moved through the darkening landscape toward the human camp. They could smell prey. They were hungry. They were confident. They had killed many things before. These small bipeds would be easy. The first predator fell into a pit trap. The sharpened spears at the bottom killed it instantly. The others hesitated, suddenly cautious. But they were hungry. They pressed forward. From the observation post, Daeho spotted them. He gave a signal. Yuna and Jae-sung took positions with their atlatls loaded. The predators charged. The humans threw their spears. The atlatls gave incredible force to the throws. The iron-tipped spear hit the lead predator in the chest and went completely through. It died before hitting the ground. 2 more spears found their marks. Another predator fell wounded. The remaining 3 predators tried to flank the camp. They triggered the smoke fires. The sudden burst of acrid smoke confused them. They coughed and stumbled. Daeho threw a torch into the smoke, creating a wall of flame. One predator panicked and ran into the sharpened stake perimeter. The wooden spears pierced its body. It roared in pain and fury but couldn't escape. The humans finished it with thrown spears. The last 2 predators realized they were not the hunters anymore. They were the hunted. They turned to run. But the humans were faster thinkers. Jae-sung had circled around during the fight. He drove them back toward Daeho and Yuna. More spears flew. Both predators fell. The entire battle lasted 23 minutes. 6 predators dead. 0 human casualties. Not even a scratch. Daeho stood over the dead predators. The iron-tipped spear was still in his hand. The firelight made shadows dance across his face. He looked directly at the orbital camera and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. 3 million years ago, something in Africa made a choice. When the big cats came hunting, when the hyenas circled, when everything with claws and teeth wanted to eat us, we didn't evolve armor. We didn't evolve venom. We didn't evolve natural weapons. We picked up rocks and sharpened them. We made fire. We hunted the hunters. He gestured at the dead predators. Every species in that council evolved on a world that nurtured them. Earth spent millions of years trying to kill us. Ice ages, droughts, floods, predators, diseases, volcanic eruptions. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And we won. We always win. Not because we're the strongest. Not because we're the fastest. Because we're the most stubborn, creative, and adaptable species that ever lived. He raised the spear. You wanted to see if we could survive without technology? We just proved we're the apex predator with nothing but rocks and sticks. Now imagine what we can do with a starship. The image of Daeho standing victorious, lit by firelight, surrounded by the bodies of massive predators, became the most famous image in galactic history. It was printed on everything. It appeared in textbooks. It became the symbol of human determination and capability. In the council chamber, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would be admitted to the galactic community with full membership. More than that, they would be given a special designation: survival specialists and adaptive technology instructors. 23 species formally requested human instructors to teach survival skills. The council established a new education mandate. All species must maintain knowledge of their primitive survival methods. Human-style survival training became mandatory for all galactic military and exploration personnel. The trial footage became required viewing in schools across the galaxy. Children of 1,000 species watched Daeho make that first knife in 90 seconds. They watched the humans build shelter and fire. They watched them weather the storm. They watched them hunt the hunters. And they learned that intelligence wasn't about having the best technology. It was about understanding how to survive and thrive no matter what. As for Taewon, Daeho himself intervened at the trial. He challenged us. He made us prove what we could do. That's not criminal. That's necessary. Don't punish him. Let him learn from us instead. Taewon's sentence was commuted. He would study under human survival instructors for 5 years. He would learn the skills he had dismissed as primitive. He would understand what true technology really meant. 6 months later, Daeho taught his first class on Earth. Students from dozens of species gathered in the Korean mountains. Sun-hee was there, already certified as an instructor, leading her own group of Tarian students. Taewon struggled with a bow drill trying to start a fire. When he finally got an ember, his face showed something his species rarely experienced: pride. Real, personal pride in his own achievement. Jiwoo stood on a hilltop watching the students work. Hyunsik joined her. Your people have changed the galaxy, he said. You've reminded us all where we came from. We just wanted to prove we belonged, Jiwoo replied. Turns out we reminded everyone else that they belonged too. Below them, fires began to light up across the training grounds. Different species, different worlds, different evolutionary paths, all learning the same ancient skills, all remembering that they were more than the technology they used. They were beings capable of incredible things with nothing but knowledge and determination. Humanity had passed the trial. But more importantly, they had taught the galaxy something it had forgotten. That survival wasn't about having the right tools. It was about being the right kind of thinking, adapting, never giving up species. And humanity had proven beyond any doubt that they were exactly that kind of species.